Good morning, everyone. This morning, Coach Hall was able to get us an actual expert in weight training, conditioning for us. So we appreciate Coach Hall. Coach Hall, if you want to make the introductions, we'll turn it over to you guys.
Sure. So today, Coach Hayes, Rachel Hayes, will be talking to us about strength and conditioning. So at Guyer High School, she is our strength and conditioning coordinator. So she works with all of the female sports, men's basketball, and a couple other men's sports. And she programs all of our weightlifting from the first day we get in the weight room to the last day of school. She is programming different things for our freshmen to JV to varsity. And she's able to do it soccer specific. So things that they need to be doing to help them be better on the field. And we have just been really lucky to have her at Guyer. And I've seen in the time that I've been there, just a drastic change in our players and the way they're able to perform, injury prevention, doing a ton of stuff just through her programming and her attention to how to design it for soccer. And so I wanted her to come on because before I got to Guyer and met her and started working with her, this was an area that I knew very little about. And so it's just been awesome to watch somebody who is certified in this be able to impact our program. So she's going to share a little bit of what she does, how she does it, and answer questions. So Rachel, you got it.
Thank you. And thanks, Mandy. I appreciate you guys having me on here today. It's always an honor and humbling to me to be able to talk about what I do and have people that want to listen. So I appreciate the invite. I'm out of town this weekend and my 1-year-old niece is upstairs running. So if you hear loud running footsteps, I apologize. She's going a little crazy. I had to try to escape her. So let me share my screen. This is all still new to me. Are we good there? Everyone can see it, I assume?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So I'm just going to kind of talk about kind of how I view things from my lens. I don't know how many of you guys on here have a strength coach at your high school or anyone else that you can consult, but I assume that most of you are soccer coaches, assistant coaches, and so you're trying to kind of run this, the best that you can. So I figured it would be helpful to kind of have a bird's eye view of kind of how I view training high school soccer athletes. This is definitely not my idea. I was part of a webinar earlier this week where a strength coach at Byron Nelson was talking about, Misty Macbeth was talking about trying to train off-season club athletes. And this is definitely from a strength coach's perspective, just a comical way to kind of look at it. We all have these really great plans, but in reality, we have to deviate almost every single day. So I thought this was just a comical way to get started. The goals of strength conditioning. So main things, we're trying to reduce injuries, obviously. We do this by trying to strengthen connective tissue. So mainly in the knees and ankles, connective tissue being like tendons, ligaments, and so forth. Also trying to improve movement quality. So if we can just get kids moving a little better, moving in different planes of motion, owning those planes of motion, they're going to be a little more successful and less apt to injury. Obviously, we're looking to improve performance at secondary through strength and power increases. And the nice thing about the weight room is that we reduce injuries and improve performance, mostly by getting stronger. Not the goals of strength conditioning. I run into or have conversations with coaches from time to time where they're like, I really want my kids to back squat, or I really want my kids to power clean, or I've got this kid that, is always complaining that this exercise hurts. And really, the way I approach certain exercises is we're not trying to make power lifters. We're not trying to make Olympic lifters or weight lifters. We're just trying to help these athletes play soccer better. So if an exercise doesn't fit or it just doesn't work for a certain kid or you don't know how to teach it, that's okay. Find something that you feel comfortable teaching and that's working. You're not getting a lot of complaints about backs or, whatever feedback, negative feedback. So just find something that works. We're also trying to not emphasize numbers. Obviously, you want to see an increase in performance. You want to see some metric improvement, but we're not trying to get caught up on numbers, especially when we're talking about club athletes. They're not going to be coming in fresh all the time. I read textbooks, I read papers, I read all this information and take it in, but I have to remember at the end of the day, the subjects and the textbooks are talking about ideal situations. They're talking about, the only training that's taking place is being controlled. And so we don't have that control. So those are just two things to keep in mind. This is another visual I use in talks or webinars, although this is my only second webinar. Imagine a bucket, and a bucket is the body. Everything going in that bucket is stress, especially when we're talking from a physical standpoint. And I've got a couple more slides that'll go into depth a little more here. That's just important to kind of remember when, you've got to implement a workout for a certain day. Just try to take in consideration all the things that your kids may have in their bucket at the time. We obviously want to avoid this situation right here. There's only so much that they can do to recover, and we're talking about high school kids. They're not sleeping. We know we've walked through the cafeteria. We've probably seen what our kids are eating. You ask them if they've had any water at 3 p.m. and they're like having to think about it. Maybe I had a bottle. Maybe I took a drink out of the water fountain. They're luckily at their age, they're resilient. They can bounce back pretty quickly, but we can approach this point really quickly, especially when they've got club going on and high school. They're not sleeping. They're not doing all those things. Other considerations. So these are the list of considerations that I try to keep also in perspective. We have to try to account for what's already in the bucket. They're playing around. That doesn't stop. I was mind blown my first or second year when we went to our first round of playoff games, and there was a pack of girls that showed up like running through the parking lot coming from a club game. Like, I was just astounded. We've got unknown stressors and factors. So these things that are going on, we have no idea at the high school level, we don't have the technology. We don't have unfortunately with club and high school, there's a disconnect. We don't know how much is going in the bucket. We don't know what was taking place at practice. We don't know the intensity level. I know that I try to keep an open dialogue with my kids, with Mandy's kids, about the extra stuff they're doing at club. I know that they have people that come in and do extra workouts. They may have conditioning. They may do speed ladders. Just all these things that may not seem like a lot, but it is when you combine all of it, especially from a physical side. Again, we don't know sleep, diet, hydration status, where they are mentally, emotionally, especially with high school kids. They're all over the place. Known stressors, these are the things, at least at the high school level, we can kind of account for. We know when there's going to be a high academic load. We know at the high school level what we're putting into them, what's going into their practice sessions there, the intensity level of it, lifts. But the unknown part is really kind of the more scary. We need to kind of just keep in the back of our mind a little bit. There are female-specific factors that need to be considered. I'm sure everyone here is aware that girls and women are at an increased risk for ACL tear, 4 to 8 times more likely than their male counterparts. Lots of reasons for that. I'm not really going to go into all those specifics today, but we'll kind of hit on some of the important things that will help mitigate or reduce those chances throughout training. You're going to notice, obviously, a decreased upper body strength. That's something to take in consideration, too. I'll talk about later. It's not something that should be avoided or pushed, but to be met with. And I think there's a successful way to achieve or improve that as long as you set them up for success. Fluctuating hormones, which definitely impact training and performance. I myself am doing a lot of research and reading about that right now. And it's not to make an excuse in any way, but it is science. It is factual that as the hormones fluctuate, it's going to affect women physiologically and impact their ability to perform, especially when you can consider the unknown things that are also going in their bucket. Sorry for this, but kind of necessary because I'm going to break down some of this as I move on through the rest of the presentation. There's three main types of muscle contractions. The eccentric portion, and this goes for playing, practice, whatever, performance, and in the weight room. So the eccentric portion is the absorption of force or gravity, or the brakes. Slowing down to stop. If you're talking about in the weight room, it's the lowering portion of a lift. So if you can imagine, like if you're squatting with weight on your back, that lowering portion is considered the eccentric portion of the lift. On field, decelerations, landing, basically the absorption, also where the majority of injuries are going to occur. If we use it in the weight room, if we focus on an eccentric portion of a lift, so the lowering portion, basically what I mean by that is we're going to slow it. We're going to use a tempo. We're going to slow it down. So instead of just going down, we're going to say, okay, 5 seconds, 7 seconds, whatever. We're going to go slowly down. Definitely we'll see a huge increase in strength, connective tissue strength. It is going to cause tremendous soreness. And it's highly, highly stressful to the body. So especially with club athletes, something that you want to use sparingly as it's already happening in high volume, especially during games, practice, all the stop starts, change of direction, all eccentric. Okay, the concentric part of a lift or performance is basically the overcoming of gravity. So the up part of a lift, it's the gas, if you want to talk about it in that terms. Explosive movements. If you see someone just pick up, like, if they're going to pick up a deadlift, pick it up off the floor and then drop it, basically you're just doing the concentric portion of the lift, negating that eccentric, which causes a lot of stress. And then you have isometrics, basically tension in the muscle without a change in length. It's kind of static. So holding a position, so a plank is an isometric. Holding a bodyweight squat is an isometric. There's also a form of overcoming isometrics where you're trying to push a wall down, or let's say I have 500 pounds on my back and I'm trying to stand up with it. I'm not going to be able to stand up with that, but I'm creating a lot of tension that way. Highly, highly beneficial in improving that mind-muscle connection. Or feeling, if you will. It stimulates the muscle, also good for the connective tissue, and I'll break that down a little bit more and like how to use that as we go on. So hopefully that was helpful. I don't know. This will be up, I think, and recorded, so if you need to go back and look over it, hopefully that will help. All right, our off-season training goals. And really when Mandy and I talked about this, she was kind of like, I think it'd be helpful for you to break down like kind of the different phases of our lifts and workouts and how like each is a little bit different and how it benefits the kids. So that's kind of where I'm going with this. And then time for Q&A at the end. So in the off season, we're trying to strengthen those connective tissues, tendons and ligaments again, which is highly important for all athletes, but especially for females. And our approach to injury reduction. Definitely want to be thoughtful with the use of eccentrics and isometrics, especially the eccentrics, as I mentioned, because they're very stressful and create a lot of soreness. We're also focused on strength. At Guyer, I'm using total body. We don't ever break up workouts to be like an upper and a lower. Athletes are athletes. They play with their whole body. That's not to say there's not a time and place for body weight split or body part splits. If you've got an injured kid, obviously you're going to need to, make some adjustments. But for the most part, if we got healthy athletes, we're going to go total body year round. Compound lifts, by that I mean we're using the big lifts, squats, RDLs, things like that, chin-ups, and then we do have some accessory work we hit. When it comes to power development, we use a little bit of everything, jumping, med ball throws, using dumbbells, landmine derivatives. Mandy's, well, I guess both your older and younger group are getting into the clean a little bit. I'm not married to it. I think with dumbbells and landmines, you get a little bit more unilateral work, and you get some, I don't want to say specific, strength coaches hate that word, but you get a little bit more relation to the sport by using different limbs and different coordination patterns. And then injury reduction, really when it comes to that, it's really just quality training. Getting stronger overall is going to just make a huge difference. Single leg stability and then lumbopelvic control. So when people ask me about injury reduction, injury prevention, really strength is going to be my first answer. Definitely getting stronger is going to make a huge difference with that. And kind of how I break up our off season, we lift twice a week, all the way up until our in season. So on the left is just kind of a general template of how I kind of go about on a strength emphasis day. And I should say throughout off season, the 2 days that we do lift, we're going to really be focused on strength most of the time. That top movement, or our A series is what I would call it, is going to be some sort of power movement. I just have box jumps listed there. You could do very short sprints, and I'll kind of get into that momentarily. You could do med ball jump, med ball toss, med ball throw, single leg jumping, really any variation of a power movement there. Getting into the main lower body strength movement is we're pretty partial to front squats early in the off season, chin ups. Then you can kind of just read through that. At the very bottom is where I want to kind of focus in. I'll throw in some sort of isometric usually at the end. So what we get with that, again, is the connective tissue rebuilding or strengthening. We're also improving that mind-muscle connection to the quads, especially for females, is super important for long-term health there. Second day emphasis, same thing, really the same format. I'm using an RDL motion. With this, you could use dumbbells, barbells. Upper body, going to go to bench press, and then lateral lunges. Again, super important for injury reduction. Just trying to get them stronger in that lateral motion outside the linear plane. It's good for knee health, ankle health, and so forth. Preseason, still focusing on strength, although we kind of switch over to just focusing on that 1 day per week, and then we're devoting 1 day to power development. So that whole second day or first day, wherever it would be, we're really just going to focus on power for pretty much every movement. Still focusing on injury reduction. Again, single leg stability. We're probably going to jack the intensity up on some hamstring training, which I'll get into some specifics on that here in a second. You definitely want to try to get your kids feeling as good as possible. I know that's hard with club going on, but if you can get them there physically and mentally, I think it's beneficial for when season starts. They're a little ready to go. This is the time where we hit the holiday seasons. Mandy's really good about making sure her kids are getting in the weight room or have access to it during the holidays, so that they can stay consistent with their training. That can be major derailment for them if they miss, and we're pretty good. I talked to them, before the breaks. It's not like their attention to that needs to be as strict as it is during off season, but trying to get at least 1 day a week per lift in. We send them home with body weight options, or if they're going to be out of town but they have access to a gym, I'll make sure that they have workout options for whatever equipment might be available. The main thing there is just to encourage consistency. The exercises at that point, we try to stay similar, but really just trying to keep that consistent. So example of like a power emphasis during preseason. So everything's kind of sped up a little bit. Again, you could plug in a lot of different options here. got single leg jumps, and noted. I will, based on feedback Mandy gives me, based on feedback the kids give me, I will adjust any number of things in the workout per day, just depending on what's going on outside. If they had, a really intense club practice the night before, if they've had, played 3 games, 6 games, whatever it is on the weekends, and they're coming in just trashed, definitely make adjustments on that. So sometimes we're not sticking with plan A, we're going to negating it or just, giving them another option. Clean pulls, big fan of that. You still get a little posterior strength. So we work through the RDLs all during off season and kind of like start to build a little bit faster motion as we get towards season. Landmine split jerks. You could do a dumbbell push press, dumbbell snatch. Really just, like I said, we're kind of surfing that force velocity curve there, trying to develop explosiveness. Not neglecting single leg work and stability with the lateral lunges there. And then posterior upper back, always important to hit whenever you can. In season, main thing is to keep it consistent. We lift once a week during season on Wednesdays, and that's really pretty much all they have, which is awesome. If I could get all of my teams on board with that, I think it would be a great place to be, as long as we're keeping that weight room consistent. What I'll do with them, just depending on Tuesday night's game, I will alternate lifts. So there's a strength lift and a power lift. If they've had a really intense game, we may opt for the power focused lift, just because it's a little less of a hangover. They can kind of recover from it a little more quickly. If it wasn't, we may try to push strength. So I'll try to alternate those. In the event that we need to get a strength lift in, I'll look at the second point. I'll kind of make some of these a priority here. Sorry, my screen did something. So if we're using a strength lift, we're gonna, they're probably not gonna be cranking out super heavy squats, super heavy RDLs. That's okay. Even if it looks light or if it's lighter than their max, sometimes they're like, I can't even lift 70% of my max. Well, that's okay. Like, you played a game last night, the fatigue is building. They're still going to get stronger from lifting lighter weights. I may take a strength lift and reduce the eccentric portion, or eliminate it, I'm sorry. I may lower the intensity, or I may change the modality altogether. So maybe they have front squat programmed, but they're trashed, but they still need to get that strength work in. So I may change it altogether and say, okay, well, we're going to do a goblet squat with like a dumbbell, or a split squat, something like that. I'll also give them some autonomy. That definitely helps create a little buy-in, helps them mentally kind of accept the training session that day. I'll say, hey, choose your range of percentages that you want to work in. If you feel good, you can work up to this max percentage, fine. I may give them a little bit of leeway with their reps. So just giving them a little bit of buy-in is going to help kind of make that session a little more fluid. And then recovery is the biggest really priority in season. You want to let them sleep as much as possible. If you can only get in the weight room at 7 a.m. the morning before a game, I would definitely try to see if you could move that to an afternoon session. What you can do in the weight room is not going to be near as beneficial for them as just letting them sleep. So definitely try to facilitate that as much as possible. And then, try to get a post-game meal in them pretty quickly, 30, 45 minutes if possible. Make sure it's got carbohydrates, protein in it. So just a quick example of an in-season lift, like a strength maintenance lift. Still keeping some power work in there with a med ball toss. Again, you could plug in different things. Front squat, like I said, or you could completely shift it around and go goblet squat. banded calf stretch. So try to take care of some of their tissue, help them feel a little better. So build in some stretching, mobility. Farmer carries, which if you're not familiar, basically get 2 heavy plates, 2 heavy dumbbells, kettlebells, whatever it might be, and carry them. We use the hallway in our field house. Huge benefit to those. If it's heavy enough, and with the girls, I'm encouraging like 35, 40 pounds in each hand. I think last year they definitely worked up to 50s, 60s. Carrying weight is a very easy way to stimulate strength, because not only is your upper body having to hold onto it and control it, you're having to walk with it. So we're getting a lot of lower body stimulation there. Really no soreness with that. Pretty easy to get over as far as recovery. It's not gonna just tax them that badly. Glute bridge or Nordic hamstring curls, which I'm sure everyone may be familiar with. Basically, you've got a partner holding your ankles and you're slowly descending to the ground. Just some additional stuff I didn't include. My 2 cents on some things. Again, training plan should be fluid and consistent. Trying to keep that A to B, like straight linear plan, is not always ideal. So just be consistent with it. Always use caution when testing. We're definitely going to try to avoid weeks of high academic stress, or if they've all majority come off of a really heavy weekend of club. If we've got something tested or something coming up that week that we want to test, I'm going to probably avoid that, reschedule it for another time. Speed training, and I have this with different conversations with different team sports. Speed training is not the same as conditioning, and that's kind of a hard thing for coaches to let happen. They're like, oh, my kids are walking, like how much longer are they going to rest? But we want to be able to repeat max effort each time. So we're not going to be able to do that if we're not giving them enough time to rest. So it kind of turns into conditioning if you're not giving them that adequate rest. If you're doing longer sprints, so I'd say anything like 50 yards and up, it's going to be highly, highly taxing on them. Make sure that next couple of days they're getting some recovery. And again, you're going to want to be intentional about when you put these in on their schedule. Make sure there's not, they don't have heavy club weekend coming up. Communicate with them. Make sure that they're going to be good to go to practice that evening or the next day. With club athletes, I think it's beneficial to utilize alternative methods for aerobic conditioning. We've definitely done circuits with our kids at Guyer, slide boards, medicine balls, just body weight movements in place, trying to limit that impact or limit that eccentric stress on their bodies, but still stimulate some conditioning or fitness. Lactic training, I'm not a big fan. It does have its time and place, but it takes a lot of recovery, and I think you're going to get a lot better results if you're focusing on that max speed spectrum, end of the spectrum. They can get lactic stuff and short-sighted games during games, practice or games. And then when it comes to setting your girls up for upper body stuff, I think we, with body weight movements, with loaded movements, we're really not doing more than 5 to 6 reps at a time, and they may have 5 or 6 sets. I may give them a total number of reps to do, maybe like 30 or 35, and I'll say, hey, I don't care how many sets it takes you to get this number, but I think you're going to set them up for success that way. They don't get so mentally crushed down that they can't do 10 push-ups or 10 chin-ups, because the trash reps are not really going to benefit them. So if they're able to do 3 or 4 at a time and gradually increase to 5, 6, 7, 8, then that's great. We're going to get in a better place with our upper body training. Lots of stuff I didn't cover, probably lots of stuff I could have talked longer on, but these are some of the resources, would be my immediate recommendations. There's a book called Functional Training for Sport by Mike Boyle. I recommend that to any and every sport coach that comes to me for information. I use the book. Mine is tattered and torn. It's a great resource. If you're on Twitter, Erica Sutter specializes in soccer. She's up on the East Coast, puts out a lot of great information. Sam Moore, who is a strength coach at NC State, working on her doctorate in studying the menstrual cycle and how that affects athletes. Really cool, interesting stuff. I think in the next few years, we're probably going to see a lot of really what's the word I'm looking for? It's going to change the way we think about training and how we look at that in our female athletes. Simplyfaster.com, the blog site. There's a ton of useful information on there, lots and lots of diverse perspectives on training. Dr. Eisman, great as far as if you know with the movement LTAD or long-term athletic development. This guy's putting out a lot of great information on just developing athletes as athletes from a very young age. That's my email at the bottom. Feel free to reach out with any questions. I'm happy to consult or answer questions that I maybe didn't address here today. Like I said, I'm not an expert by any means, and the way that we do it isn't the only way, but I'm happy to address whatever I can.
All right, Coach. We're going to open it up for questions here. I know there's one that's currently in the Q&A. It says, I heard you say one weight room session in a week during in-season. How many sessions do you run weekly in off-season and pre-season?
Like total at Guyer?
I'm not sure. That comes from Maddie. I'm about to bring everybody into the Q&A part of this. So just give me a second here. I'll bring all the attendees into it. Sorry, I'm a little bit slow on this one. Oh, that's what I have to do. Sorry, I have to take things back. Warren, are you there yet, buddy? Or sorry, I gotta.
No problem. I'm trying to count like how many I would be. I have no idea.
Come on now. I don't need to rename me. Rachel, if you wouldn't mind on your computer, if you could take off the share.
Oh, yeah.
And then if you can make me the host again. I'm not sure. For some reason I can't. Oh,
good. I was saying that and I had myself muted. Sorry about that, Rachel.
That's all right, Warren. Oh, there we go. I just reclaimed the host. All right.
Did you do it? Okay.
And then, Rachel, if you'll put stop share, it'll bring everybody's faces up on the screen.
Okay.
There you go.
Okay,
there we go. All right. Let's see if we can bring the folks in so that way they can ask their own questions here. Boy, this is... All right. Maddie's going to be in here so she can ask you that question herself here.
Okay.
All right, awesome. So kind of what I was wondering is, as far as like, so I heard you say for soccer, like during in season, you guys only have one session that's on the Wednesdays. So I was wondering, like, first, like, I guess Mandy's soccer program, what does it look like specifically, number of sessions during off season, and then when you get to that preseason portion?
So you're wondering how many times a week they're lifting during off season and preseason?
Yes, ma'am.
I gotcha. Off season's twice a week. Yeah, Monday, Wednesday. I don't know if we've done a Tuesday, Thursday. I think it's mostly Monday, Wednesday. And preseason, same thing. We're doing twice a week.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. I thought you were asking like how many total sessions at Guyer. I'm like, I don't know.
I know our strength coach, I used to be at Northwest. He had like this intense schedule that was just like, oh my gosh, man. Like
Coach, you talking about Doug?
Yes.
Yeah.
Castleberry is my man. Yes. Yeah. He's a good friend of mine.
Yep.
He's a good guy.
I noticed some here in the chat box. When do you start preseason training? How long in terms of weeks is it? Really just kind of coincides. Preseason would start, I guess, November-ish, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, the end of November.
Yeah. That's why I'm kind of emphasizing that important to keep training consistent throughout the preseason. When do you start your preseason, postseason? Like which months? Again, so preseason's going to run like November to, I guess, late December, early January.
Yeah, I feel like we switch it. So we play the 3 tournaments. So we'll lift usually once a week on those tournament weeks. And then when we hit our Tuesday, Friday schedule, I think we switch it to Wednesdays then.
Mm-hmm.
So
And that would have been a good kind of thing to hit on too with the tournaments. I don't know if everyone does that or not, but
probably pretty consistent. But we lift, we start our off-season training the first day of school. So the very first day of school, my varsity's in the weight room.
yeah.
So we start it right away. And obviously she does a good job of starting slow. So it's not like they're walking in and throwing big weights around, but they are starting so that when we hit preseason and our Wednesdays, it's they're pretty conditioned to it. And I at Guyer, I don't know how it's like for everyone, but we have in our JV period, we'll have returning JV and then brand new freshmen. So, and I don't know, Rachel, if you want to go into this, but she programs it differently for the brand new freshmen than our sophomores and juniors that are coming back on JV. So we kind of the freshmen will go in the hallway and we just move it around, but everybody starts as soon as school starts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We definitely, and especially, and this is something I could have touched on as well. With COVID happening, I haven't seen Mandy's kids since March. So it's just, I cannot stress enough, when you guys do have FaceTime with your kids again at training, how slow it should occur. I was almost, we've got fall sports coming back in Denton right now, so I'm only dealing with cross country and volleyball. But the girls were looking at me only 2 sets of this, only 2 sets of that. It's very just to be on the safe side. So, but under normal circumstances, we're starting with body weight, dumbbells, and we're building up, trying to establish good technique and good skills. I kind of I tell them when they get a little bit antsy, it's just like learning a sport specific skill. You want to start slow, establish really good technique instead of trying to rush right into stuff and have poor approach to it.
I have a question. So I also coach varsity volleyball.
Mm-hmm.
So we have the big challenge of we can start practicing, but we can't go indoor. So the mentality that I have to take is that August 10th, we are the beginning of season. We can't be in the weight room, obviously. So do you have any plans that entail lifting outside? Do you ever have?
Yeah, we had to do that with our freshmen just a couple months ago. Like I said, Denton ISD is only currently allowing fall sports to train and only in the weight room. So the freshmen have been outside doing body weight stuff, split squats, body weight squats, glute bridges, planks, all that kind of stuff. Yeah. So it can work. It's not ideal, but it's definitely better than nothing. I've just we've had early in the morning just to take the heat into consideration. Soccer kids are a little different. They're more acclimated than the indoor athletes. So they're not as, I don't want to call them babies, but they tolerate it a little better. So just, take that stress into consideration that they are just, getting baked by the sun.
And that was one of the things that I have to consider that I was talking to my assistant coaches was, do we train early in the morning
Mhm.
before we start, back to school, or do we go later, like at 6:30?
Mhm.
And the one thing, we do have our trees that would provide shade, but like you said, volleyball and soccer, two different animals when it comes to getting acclimated to the heat.
Yeah.
So I was just wondering if you had any ideas at preference. So you would suggest morning would be better.
Yeah, and I would say it kind of depends on the age group. The freshmen, for instance, can probably still tolerate coming in earlier than your older kids. Once they kind of, hit puberty, that getting up early, they literally are not wired for that. Teenagers aren't. So they're still pretty young as freshmen. They can usually tolerate getting up early and coming in. But I also don't see any issue where I think it's smart to break training up and, say you guys came in the morning, or you came in to do volleyball or whatever it is, and then you did the other stuff in the evening. I think that's smart too, because they can go home, rehydrate, refuel, take a nap or whatever. So I think there's positives to either way doing it.
Okay, thanks.
Well, Coach, thank you for your time. We appreciate the expertise and the opportunity to have somebody on that can push the soccer coaches in the right direction when it comes to weight and strength training. So